Awesome. Good morning and welcome to the Keyword Collapse, your questions answered, the highly requested sequel to our previous session about building a future-proof organic strategy. I'm Erica Sense, and I'm glad to see you today. Whether this is your first time joining a WP Engine event or you've been with us before, thank you for being part of the conversation. Before we get started, just some quick housekeeping to take care of. First, yes, we will be sending out this recording. Second, feel free to use the chat at any time. Both WP Engine and Conductor's teams are here to answer questions. And last, please complete the survey that will pop up at the end of the session. Your feedback helps shape future events. And with that, I will turn it over to Rebecca Barron, WP Engine Senior Manager of Organic Growth. Hey, Rebecca, welcome.
Hey, Erica, thank you so much. I am super excited to be back. And I'm really excited for all of you who joined the first one to be back here as well. And excited to dive back in, as a lot of you said, and we felt the same way. Last time, it just certainly was not enough time. So let's go ahead and dive right in. I am honored to once again introduce WP Engine's SVP and CMO, Darcy Kurtz, and the CPO of Conductor, Wei Zheng. They are joining me today as our panelists to continue this conversation. So thank you both for joining.
Thank you for
Awesome.
having me.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. As AI has become a major front door to information and how people discover brands, it's fundamentally shifting everything that we knew. The biggest shift I think we're all feeling right now is visibility. AI is changing where and how discovery is happening. So we're optimizing for these AI models that end up summarizing, citing, and even replacing a lot of the traditional digital experiences we're all used to. So I want to get started with what new role website experiences should play in nurturing and converting if discovery is happening elsewhere. Wei, if you want to go ahead and get us started, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I feel like one sort of fact that everybody sort of registered already is that not all the visits that people are doing, it used to be when people search, the destination would be to go to your website, right? At the end, when they find you, they click on your website, they come to your website. So in that world, website experiences is the front door to how people discover something about your brand. But now, when you think about AI, where AI is actually taking the front load of that, where people are actually discovering your brand through summarized snippets or answers that it's grabbing, from all the different sources, the front door shifts from your website now to AI. Right. However, the flip side of that, so of course, people are a little bit panicky. They're like, oh my gosh, people are not coming to my website. But there's the flip side of that, which is for the people who do come, all of a sudden your website plays a very different role than it was before, because people who come to your site increasingly are actually going to be somewhat educated. It's like the good scenario you want to happen. You don't have to do a whole lot of work to convince them, like giving them like surface level information. This is the reason why, like statistically, from a metric perspective, people see much higher conversion rate, whatever conversion means for your website, for those visitors that come from AI versus the people who don't come from AI, right? So in that context, I think the new role that website experiences play, not that it wasn't playing that before, but I think there's a bigger emphasis on ensuring that, especially, understanding the visitors that are coming from AI surfaces will now coming to your site with much higher intention and actually with much more maybe readiness or desire to act. So how would you then think about your experiences on your website to tailor to that, rather than treating everybody always coming to your site as like, oh, it's the front door, I need to explain everything and all of that. So that's like my perspective on how you might want to think about the shift in your website experiences.
Yeah, and I totally agree. We're actually seeing that here at WP Engine on our site is direct traffic is converting much, much faster than it ever has before, where people are coming in and going straight to, okay, I already know what I want, so I'm going to go buy. One thing that a couple of things I would add. One is, while today's discussion is certainly about AI and the AI buyer journey, the traditional journey still exists. So in a lot of ways, the website really has to address both buyer journeys, at least for the foreseeable future. And so you do still need to have a website that can be the front door and the education and guiding them through. But then you also need exactly what Wei was just saying, which is for those people that are ready to come in, the fast pass to buy, or as more and more stuff becomes buying in the LLMs, what people are coming to your website for is to validate your authenticity. We still have, and probably will for a long time, have some level of distrust of what's coming up in the LLMs. And so it's like, okay, I see that you recommended these couple of things. This one, maybe you said is the number one company we recommend you buy. We're still going to go do a little due diligence and we're going to go to your website. So your website now is more about the emotional connection and the brand that you're trying to promote. So I do think, the design and the quality and the experience that comes through on your website more than ever has to reflect who you are as a company, because people are coming to just kind of validate that, yeah, this is a brand I want to do business with. It looks like it aligns with what I want. So I'm going, and it looks legit. That's the other, it looks like a legitimate place that I should buy from. So there is some validation and verification that people are coming if you've come out of the LLM, that people are going to come and just make sure before they take the LLM's advice. So I do think we're going to be in a state of hybrid website has to serve the old way. And in the new way, it's about authenticity and fast pathing to purchase.
Absolutely. No, that's exactly what I know. As Darcy brought up, like we've been experiencing a lot on our own website, and it just seems like it's changing the game. We have to think about both, as you mentioned, Darcy. So I want to double click into that a little bit further. So as we're thinking about both of these journeys, and what kinds of signals are really going to be the most important for not just humans, but also LLMs and search. So be it technical, reputational, experiential. What do you think are the most important in this new landscape so that we can ensure that we're still seen, cited, and most importantly, trusted?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. Historically, Google looked at your website and they trusted you based off of your website, right? And what was your brand and that sort of thing. Now the LLMs appear, at least at the moment, to be trusting third parties as much or more as they do to the website itself. So it's becoming more and more important to have not only the content on your website, but also a distribution path out there. So you can get into credible third-party placements that will increase your credibility with the LLMs to come up. We're seeing more and more, and I bet Wei, you're seeing this. You can probably speak to this even better. But like all of this is changing every day. And I do think right now we are seeing the LLMs are starting to trust websites a little bit more and citing what direct websites more than they were 6 months ago. So I think it's something that we have to watch and keep a trend on, but making sure that all of your content is definitely on your site, but also that there's some sort of distribution, I think is going to be critical. And then that you're paying attention to things like review sites, which maybe you haven't always looked at. Like they are looking at review sites, they are looking at listicles, they are looking at other people and saying what they're looking at Reddit to say, are people, how's the community talking about you? And things like that. So definitely our focus from a marketing portfolio is shifting from just, is our website clean and pure, to what is the world outside starting to say about us?
Yeah, I think in terms of signals, I would agree with Darcy that the third party stuff is definitely very hot and like a lot of people are paying attention to it. But I do think there are some hypotheses about why third party is being preferred by AI LLMs more than maybe say your own website, right? There's definitely one source of truth, which is some of these sites are actually deliberately having some kind of partnership or content distribution agreement with like OpenAI and all of that. So for that, I think those signals you cannot ignore. You do need to understand for your specific brand and products and services, where does AI find majority of the information to return in its response? So citation analysis as a signal is probably one of the most popular and like most important signal for any kind of AI instrumentation platform or visibility instrumentation platform. But I want to say that the other hypothesis is basically website of the past hasn't had enough specific content to actually address the questions that people are asking. right? So it's a pretty naive way, but I think it's a basic assumption that also makes a lot of logical sense is like the way that you prompt a chat GPT, you say like, oh, I'm this person, I'm trying to look for this. And like on average, the prompts are just so personalized. When does website ever written content in such a way that actually had anything for anyone to be able to respond to this with any kind of credibility? Right. If you put that in mind, then all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense where when you typically try to look for answers like that, you go to Reddit, you go to Quora, right? You go to all these kinds of community and user content generation sites. So I don't know what the world will look like if the sort of the physics of the web, like as you know, we call it here conductors, like if the content game start to change and all the website, instead of just only thinking about human experiences, which I totally agree is really important. We just talked about those visitors who come from AI. They're probably looking for something a little bit different, right? But you simultaneously have to start thinking about your website and the signals attached to your website for machines and bots too. And for machines and bots, they don't care as much about the look and feel and all that. They care about information density and personalized information that can address actual questions. So I feel like citation as like a data signal, but also obviously people talk about this a lot right now too. Another signal is not only like when you do you get mentioned or not mentioned, that's like a duh, no brainer, but also when you get talked about, what are people saying? So
Mhm.
people largely call it sentiment, but I don't like the word sentiment because sentiment typically feels like positive, negative, and neutral. Actually, it's none of those. It's just like what are the words and feelings that people have when they describe you, and are they able to get answer to their questions? And when they get those answers, do they feel satisfied in what they're
Mhm.
getting at, right? So those are the kinds of new signals that I think like people are interested in measuring that they never really thought about as much before.
And I love that because in our last webinar, you had a couple of just like killer slides that were about the Louis Vuitton black bag and like the old school way of what content was required to be picked up in Google, and now the entity map that's required to hit all those long tail queries, and that's the content that now needs to be out there. So I love that content density being such a critical factor, and like how do you start to put, even if you're like e-commerce, how do you get much more content into your listings? I heard actually at Conductor's conference a couple of weeks ago, they were talking about this, and you know, a lot of them today are, you know, stuffing the FAQs, stuffing the
Hmm.
how it works, things like that. Whatever they can to get more of that content density into listings. I think the same is true for brand sites, which is how do you create an entity map that says, here are all of the things that we think people might be searching for, and then making sure you have that content density throughout your website. It's just such a critical concept. Very
Yeah.
different from the past. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of what we're talking about is kind of going beyond also the traditional way that we can report on and get visibility into, how well we are making sure that stuff is accurate out there about our companies. As you mentioned, Wei, like there's definitely a look at sentimentality or, definitely we need to find a better word for that. But that begs the question of what kinds of metrics should we be adding to the funnel? Because I don't think it's ignoring traditional web analytics. It seems to me like we're building on that. So, Wei, do you have some recommendations on what metrics to start looking towards to help
Yeah.
me report on this?
Yeah, I covered a bit of this in the last webinar, but I think I can sort of summarize some of the most important metrics, I think, in this new world of AI discovery. I talked about already earlier, like the most basic metric pack in terms of visibility are things like, is your brand getting mentioned or not, right? When your brand get mentioned, who else gets mentioned? So there's some kind of market share, share of voice. There's definitely some notion of sentiment, like, when people talk about you, what are the predominant sentiments going beyond positive and negative. We talked about the importance of citation, right?
Mhm.
Which is in addition to it, like people obviously are reporting on traffic to their website, But if traffic is kind of coming down, then like how do people think about it? Used to be like visits, clicks, right? Clicks and visits. But now I think it's been replaced to like, are you getting cited or not getting cited? Are you visible or not visible? And then once they come to your site, I think traditionally the bottom of the funnel metric, like conversion, is somewhat kept separate from the top of the funnel metric where you talk about discoverability, right? Usually even different teams own that. Like one team owned top of the funnel. Are you getting found? Are you getting visible? A different team owned like everything happens after you come to the website. Like are people converting? But increasingly what I see is I call squishing of the funnel, right? Which is you have to start thinking about AI as one contiguous process where people get, find you, they engage with you, and then they come to your site as sort of a contiguous workflow. So measuring conversion rate and action like that people take on your site in relation to where they come from, that I think is a new way of thinking about ROI or a new way of thinking about, signal, the sort of measurement that you would do. And then the last thing I want to say is there is some notion of topical authority as well, right? Which is, are you the trusted place to go for specific conversations and topics? Because I think for a lot of website, they're used to like, the title of this webinar is collapse of the keyword, right? Which it used to be very specifically instrumenting keyword level metrics. But if people are asking super long tail questions, it's much more difficult to associate any kind of performance data to just a few phrases or a keyword. So instead of keywords, people should be thinking about topical ownership and topical authority. And the more sort of dense content, like the content density again, the more authority and content density that you have around a particular topic, that is also something that people care a lot about because that means that you have more authority, you have more likelihood of being cited or being found in these AI surfaces.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I find myself going back to, Mad Men age of like how did they how did we back before we could were completely addicted to clicks, manage and marketing at a macro level. And I think more than ever, we have to start thinking about marketing as that end to end, what you were just mentioning, Wei, because, we got really addicted to every single channel has very clear fingerprints. And you can say, I know this ad on this platform delivered this many clicks, which delivered this many MQLs, which delivered this many orders. That's not going to work in this new world. We are not going to have that level of exactness. And so what we're doing a lot from a marketing perspective is not looking at GEO as just GEO and this is just one new channel because everything is going to feed this new buyer journey. So we're re-looking at our entire metric stack and moving way up. We used to start at how many MQLs. Now we're starting at impressions, and not just impressions in GEO, but how many brand impressions are we getting? How many PR impressions are we getting? How many impressions are we getting in search, both organic and paid? Because that all those impressions are going to feed that feeling about you as a brand, but those are also going to be feeding those LLMs with that content. So it's all going to be this ecosystem that works together. So when we're not going to be able to directly measure how many GEO citations ended up in a deal, we won't be able to do that. But we can start to look at a high order. Are we showing up? Are we showing up more than we used to? Is the sentiment of that growing? And then how is that impacting the bottom line? So it's a little scary because we don't have that direct attribution that we used to have, and we're having to make decisions. And do you chase clicks with more money, or do you have some faith that it is coming through other sources? So it's going to be a little bit of a transition for us as we move to that. But I do think taking what everyone's talking about as best practices for measuring GEO and raising that up to a best practice for how you measure marketing now is going to be really important.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely helpful way to explain that. And I think a lot of what we've talked about with visibility is obviously we have to rethink what the website is, but it's taking a step back and realizing we have to rethink how we're represented elsewhere. So I want to actually bring in a really great question we're seeing pop up a lot in the chat, which is around for companies that don't have third-party content strategies at this point, what's a great place to start? I don't know who wants to kick this off first. Maybe Darcy, I know we're deep in this right now.
Yeah. Well, Exhibit A, We don't have, we did not have a deep, I don't have a dedicated person or a team looking at third-party distribution. And so we had a summit in August, I think, brought everyone together and started figuring out what are our big bets that we really need to do first to win in the LLM race. And this one came up as one of our big bets. So we are now starting to figure out, first of all, we did a deep dive to see where are those, what is getting cited today for our key prompts, for the things we want to show up for, where are they looking? And we found some interesting answers. It was, there were a lot on there that we'd never heard of before. But we are then taking that and saying, okay, how do we start to have relationships with those sorts of publications so that we can get content that they would want to publish? And starting to have those conversations. We are using an outside agency to help us with that as well, identify what placements are and what's the content we need to do. We recognize we're not the experts and we don't have the whole infrastructure set up yet. So we're finding that a good place to start is like get a little help as we're building it out ourselves. And then I think we are going to ultimately build out at least a person, if not a small team. I saw a couple of people talking about affiliates. So we've got like an affiliates team. So we're like, okay, these are people that already have that skill set. How might we continue to evolve our affiliates team to look a step beyond, to not just, to have a relationship for deals, but also to have a relationship for content placement. So those are a couple of places that we're starting, but I think it's a critical question that I think a lot of us are grappling with right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would only just add to that. I think the thing that Darcy said at the beginning, which is first you got to know
Yeah.
who's talking about you, right? If you don't know who's talking about you, it's difficult to put some kind of action towards it. So initially, it's just like analyzing for the topics and prompts that users might be looking for you. Like, where are these third-party sites?
Yeah.
The other thing I saw in chat that I want to just kind of agree with is that it also really largely depending on what kind of business you are, right? And what is your business goal? I feel like prior to sort of this AI revolution of how people look for information, SEO had made it kind of mechanical where you're just like going to Google, looking at like the volume of what people are typing in, and you're just basically servicing what kind of content you need to create to show up on page one, right? But now increasingly, I think the business need to think more critically about what are they trying to accomplish. Once you understand what you're trying to accomplish, because different websites, we have customers who are like, our goal at the end of the day is like, we're not trying to sell something through our website. It's not about conversion, actually, for us. There's no classic conversion. For us, it's really about truth and like brand reputation management, right?
Mhm.
So once you figure that out and you're like, oh, from a brand reputation perspective, I'm actually not trying to get people to click and shop on the site, but really trying to make sure that AI is representing me truthfully and in the best light possible. Then you start thinking about what are the third party or the channel affiliates that matters in that sense, versus an e-commerce person. E-commerce retailer or e-tailer will come and say, you know what, it's all about, at the end of the day, are they able to convert? And I don't care about whether they convert on my website or they convert elsewhere, but I want to understand what are the action that AI is saying in order to lead to those conversion events. So from that perspective, you think about your affiliate differently, right? So I think the third party has a lot to do with knowing what these third party sources are, but then also matching it to your business objectives and goals. Like, what are you trying to do, or what's your goal with regard to AI discovery, right? And then from there, you can build up some sound strategies on the action to take. Um, yeah, but it
Yeah,
does
I love
vary a
that.
lot.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just like an SEO, nothing is one size fits all with this new world. So yeah, just ultimately getting started and speaking from someone who attended this onsite that WP Engine had, it's a really exciting time. It's okay to the start you have is literally just getting started, gathering the minds that matter and need to be in this room, which are a lot more than just SEOs or whoever it may be, your website folks. It's bringing in your PR folks and your writers and those involved in communities and figuring out the places we need to be for us. So I think that's a really great way to bring us to a next topic that's really top of mind for a lot of folks, which is, all right, so we're getting started. It's about spreading the word outside of our website, but also changing our website for these new, maybe warmer leads coming there. But it's also about preparing our teams, hosting on-sites, figuring out, where we need to be found, things like that. So, how are you both preparing your companies to be AI ready and your organizations to be AI ready? Because it's not just the fact that we need to prepare for the different ways that customers are acting, but it's also that we need to make sure we shift our culture and skills internally. So, yeah, would just love to hear from both of you a couple of ways that you're making sure that that culture is shifted and you're preparing your teams.
I can maybe start. So at Conductor, I feel like it's changing so rapidly. Like if you asked me this question 3 months ago, I probably would have had a slightly different answer. In the beginning, really it's just about literacy, right? Everybody should get AI literate, and I think for different teams that meant different things. But I do feel like in the second half of this year, as we almost now heading to the last part of the year, it's already in such a way that AI is basically a fabric in our lives. I don't know anybody at work, like we don't have to tell anybody to like go try AI. AI has basically just become a thing that we essentially work with, right? So now a lot of the readiness come in the form of for your specific goals and tasks, what are the things that AI is really good at? And what are the things where human and AI relationship is like that's the part where we're spending a lot of energy. I think one of the things that we found, because again, Conductor is in the business of instrumenting visibility, but we're also in the business of supplying really good recommendations to our customers about what type of content they should create and how they should create those type of contents. So the relationship with AI and getting the team ready is like, how do they know how to safeguard, almost like guardrail what AI is saying and doing? Everybody knows to use AI to improve productivity, but there's very little being talked about what does good look like and how do we actually teach and train the team in having skills and tools on evaluating the output that's coming back from AI, right? Guardrailing the results, measuring, actually supplementing with your unique point of view and wisdom. What's the methodology for doing that? Like how should you get all the sort of download of the brand's like wisdom into a set of assets that you can then fuel your AI processes with? These are the kinds of things that we have to train our internal and our customers actually often on how they think about their relationship with AI. So it went from use AI, please use it because it's really awesome, now to everybody uses it, but the output sometimes are not what you would expect. And a lot of time people are asking the questions like, is that really good? Is that really good we did that? So now it's about improving the quality and improving kind of the authenticity of the voice and the content that we use AI to generate with. That's like the shift that I've seen in terms of preparing the team and the company.
And I think that's great. And I think because Conductor, your product is so AI forward, you're probably a little bit ahead culturally of getting people through that shift. I know for us, I think about it really as a three-legged stool of change. There's three major pieces of change we have to do. One is as marketers, the buyer journey is changing. And I always like to start there because that is a good burning platform to get people understanding why they have to change. Is the customer journey is changing, buyers are changing, how they are discovering us is changing. The second one then is similar to Conductor. We're in the website space. AI is going to be a critical part of our product, and we've got to understand how is AI and this buyer journey change going to change the role of the website, and how do websites now have to be hybrid websites that serve AI and serve humans, and what does that mean, and how do you restructure, and how do you think about the product that we sell? And the third leg of the stool is then how do we use it ourselves? How do we become more efficient as a marketing organization, more effective, move faster, scale faster? And so, I really try to think about it in all three of those things, and there's change that is required across all. I can give a very tangible example that we're doing here. We created a program. We call it AI Spark Labs, and it is multi-pronged. It's about we have a special Slack channel where people share, hey, something I just did, or an article I just read, or did you know, kind of things, or hey, can someone help me? It's become a very safe place for people to participate and really start to learn and ask the questions. because we did find that we have people on a spectrum. We might not be quite as far along way as your team is. We still have people who, you know, aren't quite sure what AI is going to do and a little scared and skeptical, people that are kind of in the middle, and then people that are way on the bleeding edge and, you know, creating all kinds of agents and cool stuff. So I felt like we needed to create a safe space to help bring everyone along. We have contests where that try to encourage people to just jump in and play, and really trying to make it as something that is cool and fun, and we're all learning together because we are, so that people want to learn what's happening. So the other thing, and I'm going to steal a word that Wei used at the Conductor, where we're putting together little swarm teams where we're starting to practice how AI can help us as an organization. So like, how can we help with content? Let's get a content person, someone that knows how to build gems and GPTs really easily, and a GEO person. And your whole job is just going to be go do it, figure it out, learn it, and then we can scale it out. So how do we get these little swarm teams to just start using and iterating? So I think there's lots that can be done. It's just a matter of get started, get your team going, and hopefully we can all aspire to be as far along as Wei's team is.
Yeah, I would just say, wow, that's very honored coming from you, Darcy. But I would say for my team, the other note that I would touch on is that more than ever before, your business stakeholders, which is the people with the domain knowledge about your company, about your products and services, have to sit side by side with the technologists of your company, the people who are in the guts of building the flows, building the prompts, building the models. Because I saw a question earlier, it's like, how do you even build safe guardrails? The challenge here right now is that the people who know how to do this technically generally have no clue from a business domain knowledge perspective. The best people that knows how to build some of these guardrails or like vibe check the answer are all in your business functions or in most organizations business functions. So I see a big challenge of bridging technology with business, and AI is the great equalizer of all, because things like being able to evaluate the output, looking at the results, these are things that don't require what I call special technical skills. You just have to be able to start building and evaluating, building and evaluating. And I think over time, the technical folks will get more business minded, and the business folks will get more understanding of how the technology works. And that's when you really can unlock, I think, the value and power of AI.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much. This was extremely fruitful as usual, and also not enough time. Just like last time, I think all of us on here could sit here and talk about this and listen to you guys all day long if we could, but appreciate it. Just to conclude and wrap up a lot of what we said, it's beyond website, it's rethinking website, it's, you know, making sure your brand is represented accurately. It's not just SEO and website anymore, it's well beyond that. And it's also about enabling teams. Be willing to test and learn, be willing to try and fail and try again, and just making sure you're not thinking it's one size fits all. And, you know, we're all like baby deer trying to walk for the first time here in this. So don't be afraid to take the risk. So Wei, Darcy, thank you both so much once again. And thank you all for joining today.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you.
so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.